Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns, I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through my website YarnAddict.co.uk, and you can find all my social media links and link to sign up to my newsletter below this video. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm going to talk about advent calendars and a few things to look out for, what to knit with your advent calendar, just a few thoughts around advent calendars. My voice is a little bit croaky. I've had a little bit of a cold this week and my voice has been going a little bit, so I hope you can hear me okay, but my voice is a little bit croaky and I'm probably talking a little bit quieter than I normally am. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It helps me a lot. And leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts on the things I'm going to discuss today. So I'm actually filming this in the middle of December. I'm not planning to release this video to probably end of December, maybe early January, but I thought I would film it now because I have an unexpected day off, which I wasn't expecting. So I thought I would just film my thoughts on advent calendars. I had I had 2.5 advent calendars this year. I have this one, which I haven't finished opening yet, from Botanical Yarns, and then I have this one, which I also haven't finished opening yet, from Orchidean Luxury Yarns. And then I had one from Spectrum Fibre, which was a 12-day advent calendar, which I opened early, and it resulted in this shawl, which is called the Fantasy Brioche wrap, and I will leave the link to the pattern for that below this video. So the 3 advent calendars I got this year were Botanical Yarns, Orchidean Luxury Yarns, and Spectrum Fibre, which was a 12-day advent calendar. So advent calendars, obviously you're probably familiar with advent calendars, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. If you live in a Western country, European country, North American country, you're probably familiar with advent calendars. The idea is that you open something every single day. Most yarny advent calendars consist of either 10 or 20 gram mini skeins, and a load of different indie dyes do them now. I think maybe some of the bigger yarn companies do them. I'm sure a few years ago I saw Opal do one. I don't know whether they still do it, but virtually every indie dyer out there is doing it at the moment. Now, advent calendars are a huge amount of work. The indie dyers who do them have to dye up all the skeins. Obviously they're not dyeing each mini skein individually, they buy them in mini skeins, I would guess, from their suppliers, and then they dye them in batches, but it's still a lot of work. They've still got to dye them all. Some of them may reskein them, which means they basically retwist them into a new skein, so that takes time, and if not, once they're dry, they don't have to twist them, so they end up like this. So that obviously takes a lot of time. Some people label their advent skeins, so each skein is individually labeled. Some don't. The ones I had didn't, and then they've got to either be stuffed into some kind of advent calendar like this with doors to open, or they've got to be individually wrapped into some kind of bag. Paper, a lot of people use paper bags or tissue paper or something. They've got to be packaged somehow. So it is a huge amount of work, and a lot of indie dyers are single person businesses that don't really have an awful lot of help. Some indie dyers, some of the bigger indie dyers employ staff, but it's still a huge amount of work on top of their normal dyeing and work schedule and shows and events and all the things that they do. So because of all this work, advent calendars do tend to be quite pricey. They're not cheap things to buy. I can't remember how much mine were because I would have done quite a while ago. But there is a huge amount of work involved in it, but it is really good fun to open an advent calendar every day. Last year I didn't order an advent calendar till end of November, and then an indie dyer I followed on Instagram posted that she had a couple of advent calendars left and she could post them the next day, so the first one to contact her. So I immediately sent her a message and said, yes please, I want one, because I've been suffering from a little bit of FOMO for the last couple of Christmases when everyone were opening their advent calendars. So this year, well, last year I actually looked at all the indie dyes I like and I follow on Instagram, saw what the advent calendars were like, and then I kind of made a mental note of the ones I really liked. So when they started advertising this year's advent calendars, I was quite quick off the mark, can't remember who I ordered first. I think it was Orchidean Luxury Yarns, and then Botanical Yarns, and then a couple of months later Spectrum Fibers announced that they were putting out an advent calendar, but it would only be a 12-day one, so half an advent calendar really. So I was like, yes, let's get one. Some advent calendars include extras. So for example, the Botanical Yarns included a couple of stitch markers at the beginning. I was just looking to see if they're here. They're not, but the Botanical Yarns, they included a badge and a couple of stitch markers. The Orchidean Luxury Yarn one includes a stitch marker every single day, so I've got a tin here full of stitch markers. They also include a 100-gram skein on the last day. Well, I guess you can open it earlier. And they also include little essential oil samples. I've seen some advent calendars that have been opened on Instagram that include little chocolates. Some don't include any extras, and some include little extras every day. So it's always worth comparing and see what extras are included and whether you like those extras or not, because I'm assuming those extras are included in the pricing of the advent calendar. One little word of warning about advent calendars. Advent calendars tend to be listed quite early. So indie dyes would probably like you to commit quite early. A lot of indie dyes will do the work during the summer. So I remember seeing last summer indie dyes posting on Instagram that they were dyeing the advent calendars. Some were doing it this autumn. Some were, I think, struggling to get them done in time to post in November. We've also had postal strikes here in the UK, so that makes it a little bit more difficult as well. But many indie dyes will do the work quite a lot earlier, just to make sure that everything's done and posted and arrive with people before the 1st of December. So there is a kind of pressure to sign up for it early. Some indie dyes want you to pay all of it up front. Some indie dyes allow you to pay in installments. One thing to bear in mind that whether if you pay by credit card or PayPal, there is usually like a claim window. So I think, I haven't looked into this, but I saw someone mention recently that on PayPal there's like a 6-month claim window. So if I signed up to an advent calendar in January next year, 2023, I signed up in January 2023 and I pay the full amount straight away, by the time that advent calendar is going to be shipped in November 2023, it's been more than 6 months. If that advent calendar doesn't arrive, I can't then go back to PayPal and put in a claim. So, and I don't know how that works with credit card companies, whether there is like a claim window or whether you can claim at any time. But do think about that if you're ordering an advent calendar way in advance and you are paying all the money way in advance, because if that company gets into trouble, if they go bust, you're not going to get your money back anyway. But if they can't deliver the advent calendars on time, then you may not get your money back. So do be careful about that, and do make sure that you are sensible when it comes to ordering. What I did notice, because most years I'm not ordering an advent calendar because I've seen them advertised like in the spring and summer, and I'm like, oh, too early to think about Christmas. And I've kind of managed to resist, and then as it got closer to Christmas, I'm like, oh, I wish I had ordered one. So that's why last year I thought, right, I'm going to order one early. But do be careful. And I noticed this year a lot of indie dyes that I follow had advent calendars left throughout the autumn, and they would every so often advertise them or just mention them on their social media. And I've noticed that one of the companies I have an advent calendar with, last week they still had this year's advent calendar on their website. They also listed next year's advent calendar a month or two ago, October, November, I can't remember, but to me that sounds very early. So do be careful, and do remember that a lot of indie dyes do have advent calendars left as we go into the autumn and we get close to Christmas. Most of them will dye extras. So I've seen quite a few who've said, all the advent calendars I posted have now arrived. I've got some extras, who wants them? So there's always a chance of getting one last minute if you want to, although you may not get the exact one that you want. So if there's a specific company that you want to support, there is a chance of booking. There's a good chance that you might need to order early, but do be careful. If that company gets into financial trouble or don't deliver the advent calendar, you may lose your money. So once you get your advent calendar, what do you knit with it? One of the people I follow on Instagram and here on YouTube, Corner of Craft, she has a YouTube channel and an Instagram. She ran a knit along and crochet along in the last month or so, I think, and it was called something like Yarn Advents of December's Past or something like that. It was basically, let's see if we can try and use up last year's or previous year's advent calendars before you start opening this year's advent calendar. So I think it's quite a common thing that people get the advent calendar, they start opening them, they get all excited, and then they don't actually finish anything, and next year they've still got last year's advent calendar sitting around. Now with last year's advent calendar, it was 10 gram mini skeins. I actually did start a shawl, but I wasn't that keen on the first few colours, and then I got a bit behind, and then I had to go to Norway 2 weeks early for Christmas. It was 2 weeks earlier than I'd planned to go, and by the time I got back after Christmas, I'd gone off this shawl design, so I just abandoned it. And then I thought maybe I'll crochet some granny squares, so I crocheted 3 granny squares, and then I kind of lost the enthusiasm for that. And then this autumn I started making a scrappy granny stripes blanket, and I'm holding 2 strands of sock yarn together. The advent calendar I had last year was basically sock yarn, so I was holding two strands together. So I used up last year's advent calendar, what was left of it, on making or I put it into my strappy granny stripes blanket. I will see if I can add a little clip to it here so you can see what it looks like. So I've actually now used up all of last year's advent calendar, so that's good. And if there are any colours I don't like in this year's advent calendars, I will probably just put them into my granny stripes blanket. There was 2 colours from the Spectrum fibre advent calendar that I didn't like. It was orange and like a speckly orange, and I wasn't too keen on those, so I put those into the bag where I keep my scrappy granny stripes blanket, and they will go into the granny stripes blanket. And in my Orchidean Luxury Yarns, no, not Orchidean Luxury Yarns, in my Botanical Yarns calendar, I like this top row, the teals. I like the purples. I love the purples, these. I'm not so sure about this row. Depends on what's in this row here, which I haven't opened yet. But if I don't like this row, I may do a project where I just take this, I don't use these in this row, and I just add that to my scrappy granny square blanket. But I haven't decided yet. So basically anything I don't use or I don't like, I will just add to my scrappy granny stripes blanket. I've seen somebody I follow on Instagram and YouTube, Knit Natty. She has the Loving Stitches, I think it is, YouTube channel. She is using this year's, one of her advents this year, for a granny stripes sock yarn blanket. She is not holding 2 strands double though, she's just doing 4-ply yarn or sock yarn. I've also seen people who've started projects and then either decide they don't like the colours or they don't like the colours for that project and they've abandoned it partway through. And I think that's quite common. I've had to close my curtains because the sun was coming in and it was getting a bit too bright. So apologies if the light has changed. So what's the best plan of action when it comes to using your advent calendar, and what kind of projects can you use your advent calendar for? Well, I obviously now have a shawl pattern that's suitable for an advent calendar, although you don't need an advent calendar to make this. You can just use 200 grams of the main colour and 200 grams of a grey or a contrasting colour, which is grey on the back here. And I have other shawls that are not designed for mini skeins, though you can also use mini skeins. There are some designers who have several designs that are mainly shawls that are specifically designed for mini skeins, and indie dyes quite often share these designs in the run up to Christmas. So you can choose one of those, but if a shawl or a wrap or anything like that is not your thing, you can choose to do a garment. I saw a beautiful sweater, and I don't know whose it is. I don't know who knitted it, but a YarnAddict, I saw a beautiful sweater that was obviously, I think, made from an advent calendar, YarnAddict, or at least a set of mini skeins, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I had actually planned with the Orchidee Luxury yarns, because it is merino and silk 4-ply, I had actually planned to do a sweater with those, but I'm not sure because there's quite a big color variation. It goes from pink to coral to yellow to green to blue, and I got a feeling we might be moving into the purple range now, but I'm not sure yet. So I've decided to wait till I've opened it and then decide what to do. With my Botanical Yarns advent calendar, I had planned to do a garment, a kind of shawligan, I think I would call it, a cross between a shawl and a cardigan, cape type thing. But I'm not 100% sure. I had other things I needed to do at the beginning of the month, so I kind of put it off, and now I think I will wait till the end of the advent calendar, see what all the colors are like before I make a decision. And then I might decide to use all the colors for a project, or I might decide just to use some of them. Or because basically the Botanical Yarns advent calendar consists of 4 fades. So you have one that goes from teal to light blue, purple to lavender, lilac, light lavender, light purple, whatever. One that goes from like burgundy to like a light burgundy, blush pink, and then whatever's in the last colorway, I don't know. So you can split those up and use each of those in a separate project. Big thing is going to depend on what kind of advent you get. Are you going to get one that has 10-gram mini skeins or 20-gram mini skeins? Because if you have 20-gram mini skeins times 24, that's a lot of yarn. So how much is that? So if we have 20 times 24, I should be able to do that in my head. It's 480 grams. And most, I would say most yarns, sock yarns at least, have about 400 meters per 100 grams. So we're talking 400 times 4.8, is that right? You'll have nearly 2,000 meters, which is quite a lot. That's enough, I think, for a garment for me, and I'm quite large. So you have quite a lot of options, and you don't have to use them all in one project. You can divide them up. One of the things, so you need to think about what kind of project you're going to do, and are you going to do the project straight away, or are you going to wait till you've opened all the mini skeins and then decide? I would say, unless you know that it's going to be a fade or a random thing or whatever, I would say it's probably best to wait. I know it's fun to do something every single day, but you can easily get into this thing where you can't keep up because you're busy one day and then you get behind. So you got to make sure you don't feel bad if you get behind. Now, this is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and if you get behind, don't worry about it too much. But that can be difficult. So, but my advice would be to think about what you want to knit, but possibly wait till you've opened all of them before you decide what to knit. Just so you can see what the colours are like. And don't feel like you have to use them. The light's gone all funny again now, but at least it's sunny. Don't be worried about not using it if you don't like it. If you get to the end of the advent and you decide you don't like the colours at all, see if there's anyone else you know who got a different advent calendar from a different company in colours that you like better, and see if you can do a swap. If you would like to get an advent calendar but you think it's too expensive, which I quite understand because it is very expensive, one idea might be to get together with some knitting friends and do your own swap. So maybe make little advent calendars for each other. So if you have a lot of, say you knit a lot of socks or shawls in 4-ply yarn, you have a lot of leftover sock yarn, 4-ply yarn, or even DK yarn in lots of different colours, you could make up little 10 or 20 gram mini skeins. You don't have to wind them into hanks. You could just wind them into small balls like this, and then wrap them all up. And you can either do it for yourself, so you could do it at the beginning of the year, wrap them all up, put them in a box, and forget about them, and then you might have forgotten what you put in there at the end of the year. Or do it with a friend where you make one for each other. It doesn't have to be a box that has little doors on it for the correct days. You can just put them in little wrap them up in tissue paper or something, and put them in a box or a bag or anything like that, and send it to a friend, and then you can do a swap and open an advent calendar without it costing a lot of money, especially if you're using leftover yarn. Or if you're getting together with several friends and you have a big stash, you could perhaps split one of your 100-gram skeins into smaller balls. But if you're going to do it with friends, I think it's a good idea to decide on the rules. So are you going to buy new yarn, or is it going to be stash yarn? Is it going to be leftover yarn? And what kind of base is it going to be? Because you don't want to do cashmere and then find you get acrylic back. Unless you want acrylic, of course, but you know, I'm thinking there's a big variation in price there. So just agree the rules beforehand. You could get together with a group of people and decide to do a swap, organize a swap. You have to decide on what kind of yarn you're going to do, the quantities, 10 or 20 grams. Is there going to be a price limit? Are you going to put extras in? And when you will ship them to make sure everyone gets them on time. So just a few of my thoughts there on advent calendars. They are very popular at the moment, and a lot of indie does also do mini skein boxes throughout the year. I've seen somebody who does like a 31 days of January box, which sounds very tempting. So there's loads of these temptations. So let me know, did you get a yarn advent, or have you got any kind of other kind of mini skein subscription, mini skein club, anything else similar to that? Let me know what you did with it. Let me know your thoughts on it. Are you tempted to get one next year if you didn't get one this year? Let me know your thoughts on all things yarn advents and mini skein clubs and that kind of thing in the comments below this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It helps me a lot. I really appreciate you giving me a bit of your time today to watch this video. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.